Modern culture centers on the demand for total human autonomy. This makes an absolute predestining God feel like a direct violation of cosmic fairness. In Chapter 32 of his Systematic Theology, Wayne Grudem provides a framework designed to resolve this exact tension. He moves away from the depiction of an arbitrary dictator, presenting instead a model of unmerited grace intersecting with perfect justice. To understand the fairness of this system, we have to map the technical sequence of how God applies salvation to human lives. This sequence is defined by a foundational theological concept, the Ordo Salutis, or the order of salvation. This list represents the Ordo Salutis as a fixed 10-step theological pipeline. This pipeline tracks the mechanics of redemption, beginning with election and concluding with glorification. To understand the system's internal logic, we must isolate the prime mover. Step 1, the origin point that precedes every other divine action. We begin with election. This first stage holds chronological primacy over the entire pipeline. God executed this decree in eternity past, before the creation of the world or the existence of the individuals being saved. Placing the decision at this point on the timeline removes any possibility that God's choice was a reaction to human performance. Grudem defines election as God choosing people to be saved strictly independent of any foreseen merit within them. This action resembles a governor signing an unconditional pardon, a grant issued on the basis of the sovereign's authority, not the subject's record. Human leverage is absent here. The transaction rests entirely on God's sovereign good pleasure. Election functions as an active, positive intervention into a system that is otherwise doomed. This brings us to the counterpart of election, the doctrine of reprobation. Reprobation is defined as God's decision to pass over those who will not be saved, leaving them to the punishment their sins deserve. The operational shift here is vital. God is not actively injecting evil into innocent people. He is permitting a naturally rebellious system to follow its own trajectory. It is comparable to a judge closing a file and allowing a mandatory sentence to run its course. Reprobation is the permission of justice based on human infractions, rather than the active creation of evil. Many describe this as double predestination, a term that suggests a perfectly balanced symmetry. However, Grudem notes that Reformed theology generally avoids this term. The term is misleading because it implies God works to damn people in the exact same way he works to save them. The actual model is highly asymmetrical. The ground of election is grace, an external injection of value into a system with no inherent momentum toward God. The ground of reprobation is strict justice, the natural deficit caused by human rebellion. In this model, God receives all the credit for salvation, while humans receive the blame for their own condemnation. Beyond the mechanics of these decrees lies the divine disposition behind them. Election is presented as an act of rejoicing. God chooses those he saves in love and with delight. Conversely, the text describes reprobation as a decree that brings God genuine sorrow. Ezekiel 33 states that God takes no pleasure in the death of the wicked, a point that directly challenges the caricature of a sadistic deity. This reveals a striking theological reality. God decrees a sequence of events that breaks his own heart. If it brings him sorrow, we have to ask why he allows it to come about. The vessels of wrath serve as the necessary backdrop to display the full spectrum of God's justice alongside his mercy. The scriptural data provides the foundation for this asymmetrical model. Grudem points to 3 anchor texts, Jude 4, Romans 9, and 1 Peter 2:8. Examining 1 Peter 2:8, we find the Greek words etithesin and tithemi used to describe those who stumble. The root tithemi means to set or to lay down foundational parameters. Consider a mathematical analogy. Human action is like an independent variable, x, that dictates an outcome. But God's decree acts as the absolute constant, c, bounding the entire equation. The variable x operates exclusively within the parameters God has established. In this view, subjects freely choose to disobey, but they do so strictly within the boundaries already laid down by the decree. This directly addresses the myth that God forces innocent people to sin just to punish them. Grudem's model protects the holiness of God by presenting him as the sovereign permitter of evil, not its author. It also upholds human responsibility, noting that the cause of reprobation lies within the sinner's own choice. Finally, it preserves grace by defining God as a perfect judge who mercifully chooses to pardon some. Distinguishing between these two decrees is necessary to maintain the balance of absolute sovereignty and perfect justice. This data leads to a counterintuitive personal application. It requires us to acknowledge that God can decree an outcome that causes him profound sorrow. We often assume total sovereignty means orchestrating only immediate delight. But in this framework, permitting a grief-inducing reality is the method used to magnify God's ultimate justice and grace. Recognizing that salvation is based on a decree that causes God sorrow and contains no merit of our own reframes the Christian life as one of genuine humility. Consider how these distinctions impact your own theological framework. How do you reconcile a God who feels genuine sorrow over the reprobate while simultaneously decreeing their fate? Does rejecting double predestination actually protect God's character, or do you view it as a semantic workaround? If election relies on zero foreseen merit, how does that change the way you pray for those who don't know Christ? For those looking to move past shallow answers into the technical depths of theology, subscribe to the channel. Join our community as we explore high-level frameworks with clarity. We'll see you in the next episode.